Even if you dress that kid in an expensive uniform, he'll still smell like the gutter. The principal whispered this as he begrudgingly accepted the boy, Henry, into Crestview Academy. Did you know he used to pick through trash behind the market? What's so special about him, Raymond? If you want a child, adopt someone decent. He's not from a respectable family. Raymond was silent. He couldn't explain why, but every time he looked at the boy, something in his chest tightened. Until one night, he met the boy's mother, their former housekeeper, the woman he once loved. Her face was worn and broken, which meant the boy was his. "Hello, it's Mr. Hope again. Stay with me and I promise you will be delighted, thrilled, and inspired by this amazing story. Enjoy." On a hot afternoon in the parking lot of the Fulton Street Public Market in Brooklyn, a skinny, grimy, barefoot boy sat beside the dumpsters. He carefully examined leftovers in plastic containers, clearly used to that kind of work. A torn backpack, years past its prime, hung from his shoulders. This was Henry, a homeless kid who looked like he had no future to hope for. A sleek black car pulled up nearby. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, perfect haircut, authority in every step. This was Raymond Sylvester, the young CEO of Sylvester Holdings, a name in real estate and hospitality. Yet for all his wealth and power, there was a sorrow in Raymond's eyes that money couldn't hide. When he noticed the homeless boy, he stopped walking. Something tugged at his heart, an inexplicable pull. There was something different about the kid. It wasn't just pity, it was a connection. A fleeting look from Henry slipped past Raymond's guard and struck something deep inside. "Hey, kid," Raymond called, walking closer. "What's your name?" Henry only nodded, eyes down, ashamed, practiced in being looked down upon. "I'm not a cop. I'm not here to take your stuff." Raymond offered a paper bag from the car. "Here." Eat Henry quietly took the food, a hamburger from an upscale restaurant. Tears pricked as he ate slowly, as if he hadn't tasted anything this good in a long time. "You been here at the market long?" Raymond asked. Henry nodded. "Since Mom got sick, we couldn't pay rent." "We got evicted." Raymond's brow creased. "Do you go to school?" Henry shook his head. "I want to, but we can't afford the uniform, the books, or the bus fare." A dull ache cut through Raymond's chest. He didn't know this boy, but a part of his heart wanted to stand up, move, give more than charity. "Do you have a dad?" he asked. "No, I never met him." Raymond's chest tightened again. With each word, the connection grew, like a reminder of something lost, left behind. He wasn't easily moved by scenes like this. He'd grown up sheltered from want. But this boy, this felt different. "Is there anything you want besides food?" he asked, struggling to steady emotions he couldn't name. "A notebook and a pencil." Raymond swallowed. "You want to study?" "Yes, I want to be an engineer so Mom and I don't have to pick through trash anymore." Something stirred in Raymond's soul. Engineer. The dream he once had before he'd been forced to run the family company. A thread connecting him to this child. This wasn't an ordinary homeless kid. A car horn sounded. Raymond's assistant called, "Boss, we have a meeting at the hotel." "We need to go." Raymond couldn't move. He stood there, rooted. He nodded, but didn't leave. He pulled out his wallet and handed the boy a thick stack of bills. "Buy the notebook and pencil, and get your mom some food." Henry's eyes widened. "Are you sure? You're not mad?" "No, I'll be back tomorrow. Will you be here?" "Yes, I'll be right here." "Okay, be careful." As he climbed into the car, Raymond couldn't shake the boy's face from his mind. A voice inside him would not quiet. He didn't know if it was pity or something deeper. In the side mirror, he caught another glimpse of the kid, and a slow turning began in his world, a turn that would change his life. He didn't know it yet, But that boy had started a transformation he never expected. Raymond couldn't settle the next morning. Coffee in hand at the office, his thoughts still ran to the boy. Grimy, thin, thirsty for care. Instead of going to his first meeting, he told his driver to swing by the market before the hotel site visit. At the Fulton Street Market, he got out at the corner of the lot. The boy was still there, near a hole-in-the-wall diner, perched on a crate, playing with a bottle cap and a scrap of cardboard like they were toys, unbothered by the chaos around him. Raymond approached with a fast food paper bag. "It's still warm," he said, setting it down in front of the boy. Henry looked up, startled, then quickly accepted the bag. He still didn't speak, but Raymond noticed the smallest smile as the boy peeked inside. A burger, fries, a small juice. Raymond sat beside him, unconcerned about his expensive pants. Passers-by gawked and whispered. He ignored them. He watched the boy eat as if he hadn't had a proper meal in days. "Do you come here every day?" he asked. The boy nodded. "Do you have a name?" Raymond asked again. No answer, just a bowed head. Instead of getting frustrated, Raymond smiled. A quiet stretched between them, deeper than conversation. In the days that followed, Raymond stopped asking for the boy's name. It was enough to see him, feed him, make sure he was safe. He came every day with different food, chicken and rice from the hotel kitchen, spaghetti, sometimes just rolls and milk. When he hadn't planned ahead, he brought bread and bottled water. With every passing day, their quiet bond deepened. Once he found the boy collecting bottles by the dumpster. "Why aren't you in your usual spot?" Raymond asked. I'm selling bottles." "Maybe I can make some change?" "For what?" "Mom's medicine." Raymond went still. He didn't know the boy's whole story, but he felt the weight the child carried, burdens too heavy for someone so young. He handed over the soup and bread he'd brought. "Sit. Eat first." The boy hesitated, then obeyed. They sat on the curb outside the diner, watching buses rumble by. That night, Raymond still couldn't sleep. No sign of the boy. A churn of worry. Next morning, he went early. No boy. He walked the stalls, asked vendors if they'd seen the kid who sat on the crate. Heads shook. "Maybe he left," one woman said, "or his mom took him somewhere." He went again the following day. Still nothing. On the third day, despite a packed schedule, he couldn't help himself. "Pull over at the market," he told his driver. "Boss, looks like he's not here," the driver said after circling. "Stay with the car," Raymond replied. "I'm walking." He avoided the diner, slipped down an alley behind the bus depot, past stacks of boxes and a reeking drainage canal. It was dark there. The air smelt of spoiled meat and rotting vegetables. He didn't care. Then he heard it, a faint, whispered sob. "Hello?" he called. Silence. He scanned the shadows, followed the sound, and found a small body curled behind a mound of plastic. He hurried over. It was the boy, hunched over, arms wrapped around his stomach, shaking, lips cracked, skin pale. "Kid!" Raymond cried, dropping to his knees. "What happened?" "Hungry," the boy whispered. 3 days. No food." Raymond's hands trembled as he pulled a bottle of water and an energy bar from his bag. He helped the boy sip, dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. "Slowly," he murmured. "I'm here now." "You're okay," the boy cried, soundless, exhausted tears. His knees quivered, his breathing was shallow. The car was far. Raymond took the boy's small hand. "What's your name?" Silence, averted eyes, embarrassment. After a moment. "Henry." Raymond froze. The name struck his chest like a hammer. Henry, a name he hadn't heard in a long time. Not just any name, but a memory he'd tried to bury. The name of a time he'd loved, a time he'd dreamed. He studied the boy, confusion on his face, but his heart wanted to shout. Why did it feel like blood tied them? Cradling Henry's thin, trembling body, Raymond made his way back through the alley toward the car. Each step carried fear, not from danger but from feelings he couldn't explain. Every homeless kid in New York had a story, but Henry's felt different. A voice in Raymond's chest kept whispering, "This is not just pity." At the car, he spoke quickly to the driver. "The nearest clinic." "Step on it." "Yes, sir." On the way, Henry leaned against Raymond's chest, clutching the water bottle. He watched Raymond, sadness mixed with awe in his eyes. Despite hunger and fatigue, he didn't complain. Quiet, patient, deep-eyed, but a flame of life burned behind them. They were admitted immediately. A single call from Raymond to the receptionist, and a doctor appeared. "Please examine him," Raymond said. "He's starving. Says he hasn't eaten in 3 days. Vitals, weight, observation." "Low-grade fever," the doctor said. "Underweight for his age, but nothing permanent. He needs regular meals, vitamins, and rest. If he has access to stable housing and consistent nutrition, he'll recover faster." Housing? Raymond's mind clicked. He had more than enough empty rooms in his penthouse. After the checkup, he took Henry to a nearby diner. Hot soup, rice, a fried fish fillet. The boy barely stopped to breathe between bites, as if pouring days of hunger into every mouthful. Raymond watched with a quiet, growing smile. Despite everything, he felt joy, not just for helping, but because being near this boy made some broken part of him feel whole. Afterward, he brought Henry to a department store. He called a staffer to help pick clothes. "Any brands?" "Comfort first," Raymond said. "Doesn't have to be fancy. Just make sure he's warm." They chose shirts, jeans, socks, shoes, underwear. Raymond even had an ID lanyard printed with Henry's name, even though he had no ID yet. Henry stared at himself in the mirror, stunned by the new clothes. "Is this real?" he asked, eyes wide. "Of course." "It's for you," Raymond said. "Why are you so kind to me?" Henry asked, serious, clutching the bag. Raymond hesitated. He looked at the boy and finally shook his head. "I don't know. Honestly, I haven't felt this in a long time." From the store, Raymond took Henry to the registrar's office of a public school. Raymond was well known in the community. They were let in quickly. "When can he start?" Raymond asked. "If he has a birth certificate on file, we can schedule next week," the staffer said. "We'll need a guardian to sign." Raymond looked at Henry. "Do you have documents?" Henry shook his head. "My mom has them." "We'll take care of it," Raymond said. Outside, he handed Henry an envelope. "This is for your enrollment and your mom's medicine. Don't hand this to anyone you don't trust, okay?" Henry's eyes went round. "That's a lot." "Use it well. Or, if you want, you can stay with me for a while." Henry frowned. "Where?" "I run a hotel. You can stay there temporarily. Warm bed, food, a real bathroom. You can shower every day." The boy was quiet, uncertainty in his eyes, but exhaustion, hunger, and cold were stronger. After a moment, he nodded. "Okay." At the Grand Sylvester Hotel, Raymond placed Henry in a guest room near his private suite. The staff bathed him in warm water, fed him again. By night, Raymond found Henry asleep, hugging a new pillow, breathing slow and peaceful at last. Raymond watched from the doorway, a question simmering. Why do I feel tied to this boy, beyond charity? That night, sitting at the edge of his bed, he asked himself why this didn't feel like help. It felt like answering a debt to the past. He didn't know the answer, but one thing felt sure. He couldn't abandon Henry now. The hotel's hallways were quiet that night, only the accent lamps glowing. Henry slept in a clean bed, clutching his new pillow. In his study, Raymond couldn't rest. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photo album he hadn't touched in years. In the night stillness, a smile, a laugh, a pair of eyes that once read his soul returned to him. "Eleanor," he whispered. He hadn't said that name in years, had forced himself to forget. But since meeting Henry, since locking eyes with him, a connection he couldn't explain had stirred. Memories rose like tide. Eleanor had been their housekeeper at the family estate in Savannah, Georgia. Quiet, hard-working, with a simple beauty that revealed itself over time. A gentle young woman, always polite. "Yes, sir." "Thank you." Back then, Raymond had just graduated from college. Before his mother forced him into the business world, he'd had a dream: to be an architect, to live quietly away from corporate noise. In that brief season of freedom, he fell in love. For real, in secret. No one could know. Every night after dinner, they met in the old carriage house behind the estate, talking in whispers. Sometimes he brought coffee, sometimes she snuck lemonade from the kitchen. Under the lamplight, their simple presence together was enough. But joy didn't last. One night, the door flew open. "Raymond!" His mother, Margaret Sylvester, snapped. They leapt to their feet. The coffee spilled. Eleanor trembled. Raymond froze. Margaret stood in the doorway, eyebrows high, eyes blazing. "What are you doing here? And you, Eleanor, leave my house." "Now, ma'am," Raymond tried, but Margaret cut him off. "You will not date a housekeeper under my roof. Not in my home," fear smothered Raymond. What if she cut him off? What if he lost everything? He said nothing. Eleanor stepped toward him, eyes glossy. "I'll go," she whispered. "I won't cause trouble." By morning, Eleanor was gone. No note, no message. He thought of looking for her, but his mother threatened him. "Keep this up and I'll give everything to Frank." Young, overwhelmed, Raymond stayed silent, turning his back on the woman he loved. Years buried him in work, duty, fear. Now, holding Elena's photo, the one from a company picnic, carrying a tray and smiling, something woke up, not just guilt. A question. Why did Elena flood back into memory after he met Henry? He'd helped so many children through the company's community programs, yet none had reached him like this. Was the past calling? He walked to the window, lights of New York spread below, buildings he'd raised, hotels he'd built. Amid all that triumph, why did he feel a hollow? Ever since Eleanor? And now a boy had stepped into his world, familiar to his heart, stirring a question. Where was Eleanor? Was she alive? What happened after she left? He went to Henry's door, opened it gently. The boy slept, peaceful. In the dim room, a hallway nightlight revealed small details. The nose, the curve of the lips, the way he slept. Why didn't he feel like a stranger? Raymond closed the door, returned to his study, and breathed deep. He looked up at the night and whispered, "If there's an answer in my heart, you're the only one who can give it, Elena." A mission formed, find the woman from his past and the truth he'd run from. Raymond woke early, not from his alarm but from a dream too real. His late father standing in the yard of the old Savannah estate, holding a toy, a small boy before him with his back turned. He couldn't see the boy's face, but he heard the name called clearly. "Henry." He sat up, sweating, gasping. Was it a sign, a reminder, a warning? He didn't know. He only knew that name had long lived in his heart. After washing and dressing, he went to Henry's guest room. Morning light warmed the boy's face. He was awake, making a paper airplane. "Good morning," Raymond greeted. "Good morning." The boy smiled. Warmth spread in Raymond's chest. He didn't know why, but every moment with this child broke him and made him whole, all at once. "How'd you sleep?" Raymond asked. "The bed's so soft, like a cloud." Henry laughed. "I wish every night could be like this." We'll make it happen, Raymond said with a sigh. Kid, we've known each other a while now. Can I ask your full name? Henry paused, wary. Then he nodded. I'm Henry. Raymond's world stopped. Henry, he repeated, barely breathing. That's really your name? Yes, Henry confirmed, pushing hair from his forehead. Raymond's throat tightened. He paced the room, a burst of shock, dread, and hope exploding inside him. That name, Henry, wasn't just a name to him. It was his late father's name, Henry Sylvester Sr., a strict, brave, decent man, a pillar of family and business for 4 decades. As a boy, Raymond had often heard his mother say, "If you ever have a son, name him Henry." He himself had once imagined it. One day he'd name a son after his father. But it never happened. No wife, no child, no one to name. He sat back down and looked at the boy. Who gave you that name? My mum, Henry said. She said it was special. I don't know why. Where is your mum? She's sick. She can barely get up. Raymond handed him a juice. Drink this. Then we're going out to run an errand. Dressed in a new polo and shoes, Henry looked sharp, but the name still weighed on Raymond's mind. This wasn't a coincidence. The name wasn't random. It was soaked in emotion and mystery. They headed to a bookstore for school supplies. While Henry picked a dinosaur notebook, Raymond stood to the side, studying the boy's hair, his thin frame, his gestures, and slowly, the features of someone he'd known seemed to form. Eleanor. Back at the hotel, while Henry napped on the lounge sofa, Raymond returned to his office, opened his laptop, and began a search. Eleanor, Brooklyn, housekeeper, former Savannah resident. He dug through county records, social worker reports, old staff lists from the estate. He didn't know where to start, but one thing was clear. He needed to know why the boy's name was Henry. Most of all, he needed to find Eleanor. He wouldn't be at peace until he knew the truth. He stepped back into the lounge and looked at the sleeping boy. The question returned. Why is my connection to this child so deep? Is he my son? Raymond's heart felt light as he watched Henry happily scribbling in his new notebook in the hotel lounge. Clean t-shirt, denim shorts, brand new flip-flops, ordinary things to most, treasure to Henry. Yet beneath the ease, Raymond knew he couldn't keep the boy hidden at the hotel. There were questions, eyes, and, most of all, Henry had a mother waiting for him. He knelt by Henry. We're taking you home. I want to meet your mum. Sadness flickered over Henry's face. Do I have to go? She's worried, Raymond said gently. Henry nodded, slid his notebook into the small backpack they'd bought, and followed him. During the drive back to the market district, Raymond couldn't sit still. What kind of place did Henry live in? Where was his mother? What was their true connection? They turned into an alley off the market. Henry pointed to a ramshackle shack patched with tin and scrap wood. That's us, he said. A neighborly older woman opened the door. His mum's inside, Henry whispered. She's weak. Henry slipped in. Raymond waited outside. Minutes later, Henry returned, a weight in his eyes. Mr. Raymond, thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you, but I'm okay here. Mom's okay. I'll handle it. Raymond couldn't speak. The weight on his chest pressed hard. He wasn't ready to let go, but he knew he had to bring Henry home to his mother. I'll be back tomorrow, he said. Okay, the boy answered, forcing a smile. At the hotel, Raymond was quiet. Surrounded by staff and investors, he was nowhere with them. He was only with Henry in his mind. Next morning, he rushed back to the alley. The door was shut, no one around. He asked a corner vendor, Have you seen the boy, Henry? Just earlier, walking alone toward the bus stop, she said. Carrying a plastic bag, looked like trash. Raymond jumped into the car and headed toward the stop. There, Under sun and exhaust, he spotted Henry, sweaty, aimless, clutching a thin plastic bag. Raymond leapt out. "Henry!" he called. The boy turned, eyes widening, and ran. "Mister." "Raymond!" Raymond dropped to one knee and hugged him in the middle of the sidewalk. "Why did you leave home?" "I've been looking for you. Mum fainted again. No money. I was trying to find bottles and cans, but there's nothing left in the bins." Raymond looked at the empty bag in Henry's hand, at the exhaustion and fear on his face. He gripped the boy's shoulders. "No more picking through trash. I'll help. And your mom? I'll help her too. I'm not leaving you." They returned to the shack. Henry's mother, Eleanor, had stirred awake, but was still weak. Raymond gave the two privacy, but seeing Henry scrape desperation again hardened his resolve. He would not abandon them. The next day, he brought Henry to the hotel office, fed him breakfast at the cafe, and told him he had nothing to worry about. But behind the smiles, Raymond knew he needed to learn more about Eleanor's condition. "She's in the hospital," Henry said, fiddling with his straw. "Our neighbor took her to the public hospital last week when she collapsed." Raymond went still. "No relatives with her?" "No, just me. I take care of her." Raymond's heart pounded. He called the driver. "We're going to the hospital." "I need to see Eleanor." "Eleanor is the mum's name?" the driver asked, startled. "Yes," Raymond replied. He was quiet on the drive, anxiety prickling, more than worry, a fear that fate had orchestrated this collision. At the hospital, a receptionist directed them to the charity ward on the second floor. In a corner bed lay a woman, IV in her arm, bandage across her abdomen. Henry grabbed Raymond's hand and hurried to her. "Mum," he said. The woman didn't move. Her breathing was shallow. When Raymond finally saw her face clearly, the world fell away. He didn't need to hear her name. He knew the silhouette of her nose, the roundness of her eyes, even closed. He'd never forgotten the voice that once soothed him. "Eleanor," he breathed. He wasn't mistaken. The woman before him, held by illness and hardship, was the same Elena he had once loved and left. Cold rushed through him, his chest seized. "She had abdominal surgery," a nurse explained. "Removed a cyst. Good thing she came in, but she still needs medication and follow-up care. She has no attendant. The boy visits sometimes, but most days she's alone." Raymond couldn't speak. He wanted to sob, to kneel and beg forgiveness, but not now. What mattered was that Eleanor was alive, the woman he thought he'd lost forever. He glanced at Henry. "Why didn't you tell me your mom's name was Eleanor?" "I didn't know you knew her," the boy said innocently. "She doesn't talk much about the past." Raymond sat at Elena's bedside, took her hand gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm sorry I'm only here now." Memories flooded, their nights in the carriage house, secret smiles, the sudden goodbye, his cowardly silence. A nurse approached. "We need a few prescriptions from an outside pharmacy. We don't have these in stock." Without hesitation, Raymond called his assistant and had all the meds delivered. He told accounting to put her bills under his care. When he came back, Henry was asleep on a plastic chair beside his mother's bed, backpack as a pillow. Raymond laid his jacket over the boy's shoulders, looked at a sleeping Elena, and let the tears he had long held back fall. "I almost missed you," he whispered, "and almost missed our child." He cut himself off. Child. He didn't have the full truth yet. He needed to hear it from Elena. But with every conversation with Henry, every resemblance, every feeling he couldn't explain, the truth grew clearer. He would wait for Elena to wake, for the question he had carried for years. Am I this boy's father? Morning in the charity ward. Sunlight danced on the windows. Oxygen hissed softly. Nurses' shoes clicked. Raymond sat at Eleanor's side. On a nearby chair, Henry slept against the wall, hugging his backpack. Raymond hadn't moved since last night. He studied Eleanor's face, thinner, paler, but still the beauty he'd never forgotten. He had loved her with all he was, and some part of him still did. Eleanor's hand stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. "Eleanor," Raymond whispered, gripping her hand. She looked at him. For a second, recognition flashed, and time erased the years. "Raymond," she said, voice faint, unbelieving. "It's me," he smiled gently. "I'm here." Tears filled her eyes. "What are you doing here?" "I've been looking for you, for a long time." Henry led me back. Her gaze drifted to her sleeping son. A tear slipped down her cheek. She stroked Henry's hair. "I love this boy more than anything. Is he my son?" Raymond asked. No accusations, no anger, just the truth he needed. Eleanor went very still, breath shallow, staring at Henry as emotion shook her. "Tell me," Raymond urged softly. "No blame. I just need to hear it from you." She gripped the blanket, closed her eyes, took a breath, and looked at him. "Yes," she said, tears falling. "Yes, Raymond. Henry is your son." For a moment, time stopped. The suspicion he'd tried to deny became clear. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered, hurt but not angry. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, voice breaking. "When your mother forced me out, I was already pregnant. I couldn't say it. I didn't want to ruin your life, add to the weight you carried." "I had a right to know," Raymond said quietly. "I know," Eleanor answered. "Every day as Henry grew, I prayed he would find you. I never poisoned him against you. I told him that if he ever met you, I hoped you'd still be the man I loved." Raymond looked at his sleeping son. The pull he'd felt now made sense. "Why did you name him Henry?" he asked softly. Eleanor smiled through tears. "Because you used to say if you ever had a boy, you'd name him after your father. I never forgot. Even without you, I wanted your child to feel loved from his very name." Raymond pressed a hand to his chest, blinking against the flood rising in him. He'd never imagined he'd hear that name, Henry, spoken like a blessing by the woman who mattered most. "Eleanor, forgive me," he said hoarsely. "I was a coward. I feared my mother. I didn't fight for you." Eleanor shook her head. "We were both victims of fear, judgment, the system. But you're here now, and Henry is here. Maybe this is our beginning." Raymond knelt by the bed, lifting her hand to his cheek. "I don't want to lose you again." Henry stirred and sat up, seeing his mother's hand in Raymond's. "Mom!" "Mr. Raymond." Raymond went to him and knelt. "Henry, do you know how much I love you?" "I need you to know something." "I'm your dad," Henry stared. "Really?" "Really. And from now on, I'm not going anywhere. We're staying together. You, your mum, and me." Tears filled Henry's eyes as he threw his arms around Raymond, a hug fierce and warm, full of love saved up over years. In that charity ward, a family long split by the past came together. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, they would fight as one. 3 days after Elena's confession, color returned to her cheeks, thanks to the medicine, a private nurse, and the help Raymond personally arranged. The ward brightened whenever he visited with fruit, new sheets, and sometimes toys for Henry. He didn't hide his care. He no longer hesitated. He was all in. "She can be discharged tomorrow," the doctor told Raymond on rounds. "Rest at home will be important, somewhere better than here." "I'll take care of it," Raymond said. When Elena left the hospital, she didn't ride a city bus. She stepped into Raymond's black SUV, followed by a van with the nurse and supplies. Outside the hospital, patients and visitors stared at the VIP send-off for Elena and Henry. In the car, Elena stared out the window, unsure if she was dreaming. From the back seat, Henry chattered. "Mum, Did you see my room at the hotel? It has its own air conditioning." Eleanor smiled, then looked at Raymond behind the wheel. "Raymond," she murmured, "are you sure about this?" He glanced at her, then back to the road. "Eleanor, I've regretted leaving you for years. Now that I've found you, I won't lose you again. I can fix what Mom and the company expect from me, but I can't be whole without you." Tears rose in Elena's eyes, not of weakness but of emotion formed by years of love, worry, and time. They pulled into a quiet, gated community, up to a modern white house with a wide lawn, one of Raymond's personal homes, always kept, seldom used, peaceful, far from city noise. "Here?" Eleanor asked, stepping out slowly. "Here," Raymond said. "If home feels too soon, call it a haven. But in my heart, this is home for you two." Inside, everything was spotless. A room was set up for Eleanor, hospital bed, side table for meds, TV, soft pillows. Henry sprinted down the hall, holding a new ball. "Dad, Raymond! I have my own bathroom." Eleanor looked at Raymond. "Have you asked him if he wants you as his father?" "I didn't need to," Raymond said softly. "I can feel it. And if he wants, I'll give him my name." Eleanor nodded, eyes wet. "I don't know what I did to deserve this. I thought we'd die under a tarp somewhere, and here I am." Raymond took her hand. "I'm the one who failed you. You were brave. You raised our son. Now it's my turn." Henry ran back in and hugged them both. "I'm happy because now we're whole." Eleanor bowed her head, hugging her son. Raymond closed his eyes, holding back tears. For the first time in years, a quiet peace settled in his heart. Days passed. Elena grew stronger, walking in the garden, sipping tea on the balcony, watching cartoons with Henry. Raymond, though busy with board meetings and running the company, came home every night. They ate together, talked, and each evening the once broken family grew sturdier. But amid the new beginning, one question hovered. How long could he keep this from his mother, Margaret? One evening at dinner, Eleanor serving stew, Henry joking, Eleanor settling into this rare calm. Raymond smiled, but worry weighed him down. Since bringing Eleanor and Henry home, he hadn't told Margaret. No messages, no letters, not from embarrassment or fear, but because he knew her acceptance would be hard. To her, everything was about name, reputation, dignity, and Eleanor, the housekeeper she had once thrown out, belonged to none of it. She hadn't visited in weeks, but Raymond knew his mother never slept without knowing his movements. He was right. That same week, on the veranda of the family estate in Savannah, Margaret met with a private investigator. "Are you sure?" she asked, sliding on reading glasses. "Yes, ma'am," he said, handing over a brown envelope. "It's all documented. Mr. Raymond is staying at a private villa in San Rafael with a woman and a child." "What are their names?" Margaret asked. "Eleanor," the investigator said, "the same housekeeper you dismissed years ago, and the boy." Henry. Margaret's breath caught. She went rigid at the name. Henry. Why that name? No legal records named a father, but interviews suggested the boy's resemblance to Raymond was hard to miss. Margaret was quiet, an old anger rekindling, not just at Elena, but at the possibility she had tried to squash, that the romance she cut off bore fruit. That night, she couldn't sleep. She touched a framed photo of herself, her late husband, and little Raymond. "I refused this once," she muttered, "and now it returns to challenge me." Meanwhile, in San Rafael, Raymond was oblivious. Each day with Eleanor and Henry felt like the simple, whole family life he'd always wanted. Eleanor walked the garden. Henry started homeschooling with a patient tutor. Raymond was calm, but he knew it wouldn't last. One afternoon, while giving Eleanor her vitamins on the balcony, he noticed a dark sedan stop at a distance. Tinted windows, not one of his staff. A driver handed a note to the guard and left. Raymond read it. His hands went cold. "Raymond, I know. We need to talk." "Mum," he looked up at the sky. He wasn't surprised, but the speed of his mother's discovery was deflating. The secret he had protected had been exposed sooner than he'd hoped. He didn't tell Eleanor right away. He watched them, Henry sketching at the table, Eleanor tending potted herbs, and a memory returned. His mother's shout in the carriage house, Eleanor's tears, his own silence. He wasn't the same Raymond now, but Margaret was still Margaret. He stared at the sunset. He couldn't hide this anymore. She would come. They had to be ready. The sun beat hot over San Rafael, but the heat inside the house soared when an unexpected visitor arrived. Margaret Sylvester. 3 black cars stopped at the gate. Doors opened in a staccato of footsteps. An army arriving. Margaret stepped inside in a pearl-white dress, pearl earrings, sunglasses she didn't remove. Raymond met her at the stairs, coffee forgotten. Her voice cut the calm. "Raymond, why aren't you answering my calls? And what's this I hear? That you're living here with—" She scanned the room. A trashy woman and a child. Raymond bit his lip. Eleanor stepped out from the kitchen, carrying a tray of juice for Henry playing in the backyard. Time froze as Eleanor and Margaret locked eyes, the pain of their last meeting still raw. The day Eleanor had been cast out, shamed, told she had no right to love Raymond. "So it's you," Margaret said coolly. "The same housemaid." "Back again. Sturdier than a cockroach, aren't you?" Eleanor trembled, set the tray down carefully. "Mum, this isn't the place," Raymond said, moving fast to intercept. "Everything is fine. Eleanor is—" "Eleanor is what?" Margaret snapped. "Your wife? Your live-in? The mother of a child you named after your father?" Eleanor looked at Raymond. Only now did she learn why the boy's name had surprised him so much. Margaret pulled an envelope from her handbag and set it on the table. $1 million, she said evenly. Enough to go far away, buy a small house, start a business, your quiet dream life. Just leave my son. "Mum!" Raymond barked. "What is this?" "We're not doing this." Margaret ignored him. "Eleanor, be honest. You don't belong in our world. I didn't throw you out years ago, just so you could return with my grandson. If you love your child, take the money and go. Raymond is out of the picture." Tears filled Elena's eyes, but she didn't speak. She looked at Henry, peeking from the doorway, unsure whether to come out or hide. She stood, walked to the envelope, and looked at it. Then she pushed it back across the table. "I will never sell my right to love the father of my child," she said evenly. "If you can't accept me as a human being, don't try to buy me like garbage." Margaret shook with rage. "You dare speak to me like that? Do you think I can't send you both out of the country?" "Mum, enough," Raymond said, voice hard. "I didn't invite you here to hurt us. I'm building my family, with Elena and Henry. If you can't accept that, I'll have to choose." Silence deepened. For the first time, Margaret truly looked at her son and saw a man standing on his own, not the boy who always obeyed. She looked at Eleanor, then at Henry, who had stepped out and moved to Raymond, clutching a toy car. He tugged at Raymond's sleeve. "Dad, I'm hungry," he whispered. Eleanor bit her lip to stifle tears. Even small Henry could feel the tension, the heavy words of a grandmother who couldn't yet love him. "Mum, if you've nothing else to say," Raymond said quietly, "may we return to our peaceful life?" Margaret stared at the envelope, then slid it back into her bag. "Consider this unfinished," she said coolly. "I am still your mother, wherever you live." She exited with her entourage, the door shut, quiet, heavy. Eleanor hugged Henry. Raymond sank onto the couch. They had weathered one storm. It wouldn't be the last. Dinner was quiet that night. Eleanor ladled soup, Raymond coached Henry on forks and spoons. It wasn't a comfortable silence. It was the kind that felt watched by a ghost with the last name Sylvester. The ghost appeared at the top of the stairs. Margaret again, standing as dinner began. Grey gown, presents like frost. The room froze, even the stew forgotten. "No invitation for me?" she asked icily. Raymond stood. "Mum, I wanted to give you time to accept that the woman you once called a housekeeper is the mother of your grandson. Time to decide where to send you," she countered. Raymond didn't answer. Eleanor approached with a bowl. "Mum, would you like some hot soup?" she asked gently. Margaret scanned her up and down. "What I don't need is a pity act from someone clawing back into a world where she doesn't belong." Henry shot up and ran to Margaret. "Don't be mean to my mum." Eleanor stood, startled. Raymond moved to intercept, but Henry had already grabbed his grandmother's skirt. "Grandma?" he whispered. "Are you my grandma?" "Dad says you're his mom. Does that mean you're my grandma? Can I hug you?" Raymond and Elena locked eyes, breathless. The room held its breath. Margaret didn't move. She looked down at the child. Gentle eyes, a brave smile watered with tears. No anger, no fear, no doubt, just an innocent question from a soft heart. Henry lowered his head to her waist and hugged her lightly. It was a hug Margaret never expected, a hug she'd refused, blocked, pushed away. Something melted. Her hands hovered, then settled on his small shoulders. Slowly, she hugged him back. "You're my son's child," she whispered. "Yes, I am your grandmother," Eleanor cried, this time from an unexpected grace. Raymond sat down, stunned. Henry beamed through tears. "Grandma, you smell nice," he said. Margaret actually chuckled, a small laugh the house hadn't heard in years. "I'm not used to being called Grandma," she said, "but from you, Henry, I'll allow it." "Thank you, Grandma," Eleanor said, flustered. Margaret exhaled. "I'm not ready to embrace all of this," she admitted, "but I can't turn away a child, especially one who reminds me of myself." She looked at Henry again. Raymond watched his mother, surprised. "I'm not saying I accept everything," Margaret told Raymond and Eleanor, "but I can begin. I can't throw my grandson into the cold." "If you can try to love Henry," Eleanor said softly, "that's enough for us." Raymond squeezed Eleanor's hand. "We're not a perfect family, Mom, but I won't let the past repeat. This time, we face it together, with you, if you want." Margaret stepped closer, eyes on Elena. "I'm not ready to call you family," she said, "but I won't stop you from loving my son." Elena nodded. She hadn't asked for a perfect embrace, only that Henry be accepted. "From now on," Margaret said, "I want to see Henry every day. And I'll enroll him in the best school. He will never walk a market or beg again." "Grandma!" Henry cried. "I want to study." "I want to learn to speak English with lots of rupees." Margaret smiled. "You'll have excellent tutors at Crestview Academy. And no one will bully you, not if they know I'm your grandmother." A new chapter opened. The relationships weren't perfect. Margaret still went cold when speaking to Elena, but with every hug from Henry, the ice thinned. With every grandma, the proud face softened. For the first time in a long time, they all sat at one table. In the quiet, only the clink of spoons and Henry's small laughs filled the air as he recounted his day. For Eleanor, these were small miracles: recognition, an embrace, hope. The grand ballroom of the Sylvester Hotel glittered with white flowers, gold drapery, and chandeliers. Guests from the city's old guard mingled at Margaret and Henry Sr.'s 40th wedding anniversary. Gossip hummed, But no one foresaw the emotional explosion ahead. Eleanor was modestly dressed, a pearl-colored dress, hair falling softly. She sat in a corner with Henry. Raymond received guests as heir to the Sylvester group. "There are so many rich people here, Mom," Henry whispered, "but you're the prettiest." Eleanor smiled. "Thank you, sweetheart." "If you said it, it must be true." Raymond took the mic. "Good evening, everyone," he began, looking at his parents. "Tonight we honor 40 years of my parents' marriage, a steadfast love that inspired many." Applause. He took a breath. "And tonight I'd like to follow in their footsteps, of true love." Margaret frowned. Eleanor stiffened. Raymond signaled the coordinator. The music shifted to a romantic instrumental. Lights pooled at center stage where a white aisle rolled out. "I ask the woman I love," Raymond continued, walking forward, "not as a housemaid, not merely as the mother of my son, but as the woman I will marry." Gasps. People clutched their chests, craned for a better view. Eleanor nearly fainted. "Raymond," she whispered. Henry tugged her hand. "Mum, is this real? Are you and Dad getting married now?" Raymond stood smiling, fearless. "Tonight, Eleanor, in front of everyone, I want you to hear it. You are my dream, and I will not lose you again." Tears fell. Eleanor didn't move. "I'm not ready," she trembled. "You don't have to be," Raymond said. "I will fight for you." "I'll set right what fear broke." Henry scrambled onto the stage with a tiny bouquet. "Please, Mom." The ballroom hushed, only music and Eleanor's heartbeat. She stood at last, each step met with applause, tears, and shock. At the altar, Raymond greeted her with a soft smile. "You're the only one I want for life. I will never let you go." Bridesmaids and groomsmen, employees Raymond had secretly arranged, stepped out. A minister was ready for the surprise ceremony. "Raymond and Eleanor," the minister intoned, "before God and those who love you, will you give your whole hearts to one another?" "What's your answer, Mom?" Henry called. Laughter. "I do," Eleanor said, smiling through tears. "I do," Raymond answered, taking her hands. "By the power invested in me and the love you share, I pronounce you husband and wife." Applause, cheers, a chorus of "Kiss the bride." Raymond kissed Eleanor, forehead, cheek, lips, full of respect, promise, and the certainty that they would finally be the center of their own story. Margaret sat quietly in a corner, not smiling, but not leaving. She didn't stand to stop the wedding. She didn't throw out the woman who was now her daughter-in-law and the mother of her grandson. That was permission enough for Raymond. At the end, Henry ran to his parents. "Dad, Mom, you're married." "Yes," Eleanor said. "We're whole now. But can I still sleep in the middle?" Henry grinned. They laughed as the lights dimmed and guests rose in a standing ovation for the year's most unexpected wedding, the CEO and the former housekeeper. For Raymond, it wasn't just a wedding, it was love defeating fear. At last, he had a family to come home to. The sun rose over the Sylvester family's new Asheville retreat, a glass-filled home with mountain views and quiet. From the terrace, Eleanor watched clouds drift like cotton. In her arms, a newborn daughter slept, named Esperanza. "It's like a dream," she whispered, brushing the baby's soft cheek. Raymond appeared with a breakfast tray, kissing his queen on the forehead. "You look like a barista," Elena teased. "And you look like a goddess." Raymond grinned. Inside, Henry raced by in a superhero cape. "Mom, Dad, can Esperanza be my sidekick?" "Careful, she might upstage you," Raymond laughed. "She'll be a baby genius," Henry declared. "I'll teach her to read, starting now." Laughter filled the house. Raymond's dream took shape. A whole, happy family. No fear, no secrets. Or so he thought. Months passed. Margaret's awkwardness eased into a brittle calm. She wasn't warm to Eleanor, but she wasn't cruel either. She visited often, watching the children play. "Grandma, come play with us," Henry would cry. "I don't know how," she'd say. "That's okay. I'll teach you." He tugged her along. She pretended to resist, but Henry's laughter softened something inside. In her room one night, Margaret studied an old photograph, herself, a young Raymond and Elena in the background at a company event. "I shouldn't have judged her so quickly," she murmured, but still couldn't speak the whole truth, that Elena had once saved her life. In Raymond and Elena's home, new traditions formed: Saturday pancakes with Dad and Henry, Sunday family garden day with Elena, nightly prayers together, hands linked in the kids' room. "Mum, Dad, when can Esperanza sleep in my room?" Henry asked. "When you stop falling out of bed," Eleanor teased. Despite the peace, Raymond still wondered why his mother couldn't accept Eleanor fully, but since they weren't fighting anymore, he let it be. One evening, while Elena rested, Margaret sat beside her in the quiet living room, night breeze drifting through the open window. "Thank you," Margaret said, voice low and stiff. Eleanor looked up. "For what?" "For giving my son a home I never gave him." Eleanor didn't answer at first, but she knew it was a hint: regret, forgiveness, or both. "I never asked for wealth," she said. "I just want my child to be happy." "Maybe it's time I started accepting," Margaret replied. "Not to lose, but because I'm tired of fighting." Eleanor blinked away tears and nodded, turning back to the moonlight. Over the next weeks, Margaret's visits became regular. She asked what Eleanor needed. She enrolled Henry in piano lessons, bought baby books, and sometimes called Eleanor dear. Raymond's heart swelled with gratitude. He thought life couldn't be more blessed, a perfect fresh start. Then came heat, a kind no one expected. While Raymond was on a business trip to break ground on a new project, Eleanor stayed with Henry and the housekeeper at the San Rafael home. A simple day, until wiring in the ceiling sparked. By afternoon, a fire broke out in the kitchen. The housekeeper got Henry out quickly, but Elena rushed back for family photos, Henry's clothes, a few precious things. "Elena!" Neighbors shouted as smoke thickened. Henry screamed outside. "Mum!" The air burned, heat pressed in. At last, Elena stumbled out wrapped in a wet blanket, streaked with soot. Red burned across her right cheek, neck and arm, skin blistered and broken. At the hospital, the doctor told Raymond, fresh from the airport, shaken, "She's safe, but we need to treat the burns now." Scarring is likely. He saw Eleanor's face, bandaged, the light dimmed in her eyes. "Raymond," she whispered through tears, not from pain, but from shame. "I don't want to go out anymore. Don't introduce me to anyone." Weeks later, she returned home, larger, more beautiful than before. But she wasn't the same. She wore a veil or large sunglasses, avoided mirrors, stayed inside. "You're never ugly, Elena," Raymond told her over and over, holding her close. "Those scars are your courage." But words weren't enough. The fire had left marks deeper than skin. An invitation arrived, a gala for the city's elite, where Raymond would receive the Most Outstanding Young CEO award. Everyone expected him finally to present his wife. "Should I even go?" Eleanor asked, turned from the mirror. "You shouldn't just go, you should be by my side," Raymond said, steady as steel. Heart heavy, Eleanor went. Gown, veil, makeup, none could fully hide the burn. At the all-white gala, smooth skin, perfume, couture, the room quieted when they entered, hand in hand. Whispers buzzed. "That's his wife? Is that a burn on her face? Wasn't she a housekeeper?" Snickers. A high society woman murmured, "You can't force a nobody into our world." Eleanor's chest seized. Shame slammed like a slap. She couldn't meet anyone's eyes. She wanted to scream, run, hide. Raymond's grip tightened. He stepped forward and took the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this is Elena, the woman who taught me how to love, and who ran back into a burning house to save our child. She is my wife. If you can't look at her with respect, I will walk out of here with her right now." Silence. Some flushed. Others looked away. Tears slipped down Eleanor's cheeks. She didn't know if they were of shame or strength. She only knew that even if the world judged her, one man chose her completely. In the car home, Raymond stroked her hand. "You don't have to prove your worth to anyone, Elena." "But I have so many scars." "Real beauty isn't skin, makeup, or gowns," he said softly. "It's courage." Yours, Eleanor, was quiet. For the first time, she turned toward the mirror, lifted her veil, and looked, still unable to smile, but with a new light in her eyes. Margaret, however, fumed after the gala. She couldn't accept that Eleanor, with scars, simple taste, and no wealth, was the wife her son presented. In the eyes of high society, it was a stain on their name. The next day, her black SUV rolled up to Raymond's house. No warning, no hesitation. She stormed inside. "Eleanor!" Margaret snapped. "Do you know what embarrassment you caused last night?" Eleanor, seated on the sofa with a bandage on her cheek, looked up but said nothing. Henry grabbed his mother's hand. "Grandma, please stop." "I'm not talking to you," Margaret shot back. She turned on Elena. "You're the reason they laughed at us. You were burned, and still, you walked in front of everyone, without thinking about how you looked. A housekeeper forcing herself into my son's life." The door opened. Raymond, just back from the office, froze at the scene. "Mom, leave Elena alone." "That's enough." "It isn't," Margaret said sharply. "She should go back where she belongs." Eleanor was silent, lips pressed tight. Raymond noticed a small box on the table, a box he'd been looking for. Eleanor opened it and handed Margaret a letter and medical record. "What's this?" Margaret asked. "Read it," Eleanor said. Margaret's eyes scanned, then widened. "Donor, segment of intestine. Eleanor, Sylvester." The color drained from her face. "You were my donor." "No. Impossible." Eleanor nodded. "Years ago, I was your housekeeper then. I'm the young woman who donated a segment of intestine when doctors said there was no hope without a match. I signed the waiver so you could live. I gave whatever I could." Memories crashed over Margaret, the frightened but resolute young woman in the hospital, signing papers to save her life. "You lied," Margaret whispered. "You didn't say who you were." "I thought you were just a volunteer." "I didn't lie," Eleanor said softly. "I just didn't tell the whole truth. I knew that no matter what I did, I'd still be just a housekeeper to you." Raymond knelt by his mother. "She's the reason you're alive. And she's the woman you forced out of my life." The room fell silent. Henry stood behind his mother, a little defender. Tears overflowed from Margaret's eyes. Shock, shame, and deep regret. "Eleanor, if only I had known. If only," Margaret whispered. "I forgave you long ago," Eleanor said quietly. "I never expected our paths to cross again." "I didn't plan this. This isn't chance," Raymond said. "It's choice. Mine. If you're angry at Elena, be angry at me too. I was the one who chose fear over love." Margaret turned to Henry, resting her hands gently on his shoulders. "Forgive me, grandson," she said softly. "If my heart was hard, let me learn to love again." Henry hugged her, tears bright. The scene grew heavier with crying, but lighter in every chest. Eleanor stepped to Margaret and took her hand. "I'm not asking for your love, just a chance to show the kind of family we can be." Margaret nodded. No words were enough, but tears, Embraces and truth filled the space that words could not. The once lively Sylvester home fell into an uneasy quiet. Raymond, once a force of nature, moved like a ghost. He sat on the edge of his bed, pale, hollow-eyed, barely eating. He stared out the window as if the silence might answer. Downstairs, Eleanor wiped away tears as she sorted letters from the company, asset freezes, board reviews, emergency meeting invites that Raymond refused. "He's not himself," she told Margaret, while measuring out medicine for the baby. "Since the flagship project fell apart, it's like he can't breathe." "Don't judge him, dear," Margaret said, worry etched on her face. "Every man hits a valley that breaks his confidence. Raymond isn't easily beaten, but the days painted another picture. He didn't shave. He skipped meals." A simple question from Henry drew a long silence. "Dad, do you not want us anymore?" Henry asked once, tears slipping. Eleanor hugged Henry. "Don't think that," she said. "He loves us. He's just hurting and lost." Then came the worst news. The Sylvester Group was formally removed from bidding on a multi-billion government contract, Raymond's key plan to recover. Delays, late investments, internal issues, gone. The board called emergency meetings. Raymond refused. "I can't face them," he told Elena. "How do I stand as CEO when I can't even save my own project?" Eleanor knelt before him, taking his hands. "It's not a project we need saved, Raymond. It's you." He turned away, buried his face in a pillow, and wept. Through it all, Eleanor and Henry stayed steady, keeping the home together with no promise of tomorrow. One night, while Raymond slept, Eleanor joined Margaret on the veranda. "I don't know how much longer he can stay like this," Eleanor whispered. "The man I loved, full of dreams, looks like he's lost his purpose. When Raymond was a boy, he once spiked a terrifying fever," Margaret said, after a pause. "I wrapped him in cold towels and cried all night. When he woke, the first thing he said was, 'Mum, don't be scared. I've got this.' He has never been one to give up." Eleanor wiped her eyes. "But what now?" "He can't say that anymore." "Then maybe it's our turn," Margaret said. "Maybe we say it to him." The next day, Eleanor entered the dim bedroom with a worn folder. Inside were sketches of their simple dreams, photos of the family, Henry's first acceptance letter. "Raymond," she said quietly, "business wasn't your first dream." Family was tears slipped down Raymond's face. He looked at Henry's photo and closed his eyes. "What if I'm not enough? Please don't take away from us the man who taught us to fight," Eleanor said. "We don't need a perfect CEO. We need a husband and father who stands up again." For the first time in days, Raymond nodded. He stood, took off the wrinkled shirt he'd worn all week, and drew a deep breath. He wasn't ready to face the world, but he could face himself. As Raymond worked to rebuild himself from the ashes, Henry quietly moved, too. While cleaning the library one day, he found a thick book on business strategy, open to a chapter. He read a line that clicked: value creation through community-based innovation. "Grandma," he asked later, pouring tea on the veranda, "how do you build a business without capital?" Margaret turned, intrigued. "Why do you ask, dear?" "I was thinking about the market," Henry said. "Where I came from, there's so much trash. But if people learn to upcycle and make products together, then sell them, there'd be income, a company and a community." "You want to build something from your street experience," Margaret murmured. "Not just a business," Henry said. "A livelihood for kids like me." The next day, Henry brought his notebook, sketches, flowcharts, budget estimates, laid out clearly. He called it Echo Hope, a side company to incubate waste-to-worth livelihoods, designed and led by community members. He'd even drawn a logo, a hand cradling a leaf. Margaret called the Sylvester Group's remaining board members. In a room full of big names, a former trash picker presented his plan. "Good morning," Henry said. "I'm Henry. I didn't graduate from business school. I graduated from the streets, and there I learned everything has value if someone will listen." The boardroom fell silent. Raymond, now back in the CEO chair as an advisor, could hardly believe what he heard. Henry's slides showed kids who scavenged bottles and how, under Echo Hope, they could become creators, not cogs in a corporation, but owners of a new future. "Innovation doesn't always need technology," Henry said. "Sometimes it needs a listener." An elderly board member nodded. "Young man," he said, "that's the most meaningful business speech I've heard in my life." With seed funds from Margaret's personal resources, Henry launched a pilot. In 2 months, the company's public image surged. The Sylvester Group re-emerged, not just as a business, but as a social enterprise rediscovering compassion and responsibility. Partners returned. The Department of Commerce took interest. An international NGO pledged support. The most important day came when Raymond gathered the company for a special event. "Today," he began on stage, "is not about me or our rebound. Today is about a boy who reminded us all how to rise from the ground." He gestured Henry up beside him. "Friends," he said, "this child is not merely the beneficiary of kindness. He is my son, and today, before all of you, I introduce him as the next generation CEO in training of the Sylvester Group." The hall erupted in applause. Tears fell. Eleanor stood at the side, stunned with pride. Margaret watched quietly, heart full of hope. After the program, Henry hugged Raymond hard. "Thank you, Dad." "I didn't save this company, son," Raymond said. "You did." At sunset, they ate together in the garden. Raymond, Eleanor, Henry, and Barbie Esperanza. Quiet dinner, full of love. "Can you be a CEO even if you can't make coffee?" Eleanor teased. "I'll invent a new flavor." Henry grinned. "Chocolate, kid-friendly." They laughed, no trace of yesterday's darkness. In the corner of the veranda, Margaret watched her firebrand grandson and smiled softly. "The housekeeper's child," she whispered, "turned out to be our family's hope. Thank you for listening. It's your tale master, Mr. Hope. Make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories."